Thomas couldn't believe his eyes when he stumbled upon the injured young woman lying in the alley. Her dress was torn, her face bruised, and she was barely conscious. Without a second thought, he scooped her up and hurried to his car, determined to get her to the hospital as fast as possible. As he drove through the dark streets, his mind raced with questions. Who was this girl? What had happened to her? And why did he feel such a strong compulsion to help her, a complete stranger? Perhaps it was his kind heart, or maybe there was something more mysterious at play. When he arrived at the ER, the doctors immediately rushed Sophia, as he later learned her name was, into emergency surgery. Thomas paced the waiting room, his anxiety building with each passing minute. What if she didn't make it? What if the perpetrators came after him for interfering? Just as he was about to give in to his fears, a nurse approached with a solemn expression. "Sir, the girl you brought in is stable, but we need to speak with you. There's a man here who claims to know her and is demanding information about her whereabouts." Thomas felt his heart skip a beat. A man. What does he look like? Tall, well-dressed, with an imposing presence. He says his name is Vincent. Thomas couldn't believe his eyes when he stumbled upon the injured young woman lying in the alley. Her dress was torn, her face bruised, and she was barely conscious. Without a second thought, he scooped her up and hurried to his car, determined to get her to the hospital as fast as possible. As he drove through the dark streets, his mind raced with questions. Who was this girl? What had happened to her? And why did he feel such a strong compulsion to help her, a complete stranger? Perhaps it was his kind heart, or maybe there was something more mysterious at play. When he arrived at the ER, the doctors immediately rushed Sophia, as he later learned her name was, into emergency surgery. Thomas paced the waiting room, his anxiety building with each passing minute. What if she didn't make it? What if the perpetrators came after him for interfering? Just as he was about to give in to his fears, a nurse approached with a solemn expression. "Sir, the girl you brought in is stable, but we need to speak with you. There's a man here who claims to know her and is demanding information about her whereabouts." Thomas felt his heart skip a beat. A man. What does he look like? Tall, well-dressed, with an imposing presence. He says his name is Vincent and that he's a powerful local businessman. The name sent a chill down Thomas's spine. Vincent was the notorious Mafia boss who had a reputation for ruthlessness and a complete disregard for the law. If he was involved with Sophia, Thomas knew he was in over his head. Reluctantly, he followed the nurse to a private room where the intimidating figure of Vincent was waiting. "Well, well, well," the Mafia boss drawled, his eyes narrowing as he studied Thomas. "You have something that belongs to me." Thomas felt his heart pounding as he faced the intimidating figure of Vincent, the notorious Mafia boss. "What do you mean she belongs to you?" he asked, his voice betraying his growing fear. Vincent let out a sinister chuckle. "Sophia is my property, boy. She's been working for me, and now you've interfered with my business." He took a step closer, his eyes cold and menacing. "That's a dangerous game you're playing." Thomas swallowed hard, his mind racing. "I was just trying to help her. I found her hurt and—" "Hurt?" Vincent interrupted, his lips curling into a cruel smile. "Oh, she's been hurt, all right, but not by some random attacker." He paused, letting the implication sink in. "Sophia is my top enforcer. She's the one who's been hurting others for me." Thomas felt the blood drain from his face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that sweet little Sophia is not the innocent victim you think she is." Vincent leaned in, his voice a low, ominous growl. "She's a cold-blooded killer, and now that you've interfered, you're a liability." Thomas's heart raced as the full weight of Vincent's words hit him. Sophia, the injured young woman he had tried to help, was a ruthless criminal working for the Mafia. And now, by getting involved, he had put himself in grave danger. Just then, the door to the room burst open, and a group of heavily armed men stormed in, their weapons trained on Thomas. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice trembling. "You're coming with us," one of the men said, his expression cold and merciless. Thomas's eyes widened in horror. "Wait, what? Why?" Vincent's lips curled into a sinister smile. "You know too much, and I can't have any loose ends." He nodded to the men. "Take care of him." Thomas's heart raced as the armed men closed in, and he knew that his only chance of survival was to think fast and act quickly. As the first man reached for him, Thomas lashed out, his fist connecting with the man's jaw with a sickening crack. The other men hesitated for a moment, caught off guard by Thomas's unexpected move. Seizing the opportunity, Thomas bolted for the door, his mind racing as he tried to find a way out of this nightmare. He ran down the hospital corridors, ignoring, and now, by getting involved, he had put himself in grave danger. Just then, the door to the room burst open, and a group of heavily armed men stormed in, their weapons trained on Thomas. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice trembling. "You're coming with us," one of the men said, his expression cold and merciless. Thomas's eyes widened in horror. "Wait, what? Why?" Vincent's lips curled into a sinister smile. "You know too much, and I can't have any loose ends." He nodded to the men. "Take care of him." Thomas's heart raced as the armed men closed in, and he knew that his only chance of survival was to think fast and act quickly. As the first man reached for him, Thomas lashed out, his fist connecting with the man's jaw with a sickening crack. The other men hesitated for a moment, caught off guard by Thomas's unexpected move. Seizing the opportunity, Thomas bolted for the door, his mind racing as he tried to find a way out of this nightmare. He ran down the hospital corridors, ignoring the startled looks from patients and staff. He had to get away, had to find a way to escape the clutches of the Mafia. But as he rounded a corner, he found himself face to face with a familiar figure, Sophia, standing in the middle of the hallway, her eyes narrowed in a cold, calculating gaze. Thomas froze, his heart pounding in his chest. "Sophia, what's going on?" he asked, his voice trembling. Sophia took a step towards him, her movements fluid and graceful, like a predator stalking its prey. "You really shouldn't have interfered, Thomas," she said, her voice soft and deadly. "Now you've made a very powerful enemy." Thomas felt a shiver run down his spine. "But you were hurt. I was just trying to help." "Help?" Sophia scoffed, a cruel laugh escaping her lips. "I don't need your help, Thomas. I've been taking care of myself just fine." She took another step forward, her eyes glinting with malice. "And now, I'm going to make sure you never interfere with me or my boss again." Thomas's mind raced, trying to find a way out of this nightmare. "Sophia, please, you don't have to do this. We can figure something out. I can—" His words were cut off as Sophia's fist connected with his jaw, sending him reeling backwards. He felt the world spin around him, and as he hit the ground, he saw Sophia standing over him, her expression cold and merciless. "You should have minded your own business, Thomas," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now, you're going to pay the price." Thomas watched in horror as Sophia pulled a gun from her waistband, the metal glinting in the harsh hospital lights. He knew that this was it, that his life was about to end at the hands of the woman he had tried to help. But just as Sophia raised the gun, a loud commotion erupted from down the hallway. Thomas saw a group of uniformed officers rushing towards them, their weapons drawn. "Drop the gun!" one of the officers yelled, his voice booming through the corridor. Sophia's eyes widened, and for a moment Thomas saw a flicker of fear in her expression. But then, in a split second, her features hardened, and she whirled around, raising the gun towards the approaching officers. Thomas watched in stunned silence as the scene unfolded before him. Sophia fired off several shots, the sound of the gunfire echoing through the hospital. The officers returned fire, and Thomas ducked for cover, his heart pounding in his chest. The exchange of gunfire seemed to last an eternity, but finally, the sound of the last shot faded, leaving a deafening silence in its wake. Thomas slowly lifted his head, his eyes scanning the scene. Sophia lay on the ground, unmoving, a pool of blood slowly spreading around her. The officers were also down, their bodies motionless. Thomas felt a sense of disbelief wash over him. He had never imagined that his attempt to help a stranger would lead to such a violent and chaotic outcome. He slowly got to his feet, his legs trembling beneath him. As he approached Sophia's lifeless form, he felt a wave of conflicting emotions wash over him. Part of him was relieved that the threat had been neutralized, but another part of him was deeply troubled by the revelation of her true nature. He knelt down beside her, his fingers trembling as he reached out to check for a pulse. But just as his fingers brushed against her skin, Sophia's eyes snapped open and she let out a choked gasp. Thomas recoiled in shock, his heart racing. "Sophia, you're alive," she rasped, her voice barely audible. "I'm not done yet."
Thomas watched in horror as Sophia reached into her jacket, her hand emerging with a small, sleek object. Before he could react, she pressed a button and a deafening explosion rocked the hospital, sending debris and smoke billowing through the corridor. Thomas felt himself being thrown backwards, his body slamming against the wall. As the ringing in his ears subsided, he realized that the blast had not come from Sophia's gun, but from some kind of explosive device. Coughing and choking on the acrid smoke, Thomas looked around, his eyes wide with terror. The hallway was in ruins, bodies strewn everywhere, and the air was thick with the stench of blood and destruction. And in the midst of the chaos, Sophia was gone, leaving Thomas alone and terrified, with no idea what was to come next. Here is a new 1,600-word chapter continuing the story. I couldn't believe what just happened. One minute I was trying to help that poor injured girl, Sophia, and the next thing I knew she was pulling a gun on me and getting into a shootout with the cops. And then the explosion. It all happened so fast, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. When the smoke finally cleared, Sophia was gone. I looked around the destroyed hallway, bodies everywhere, and realized I was completely alone. My heart was pounding, palms sweating.
What the hell was I supposed to do now? I had to get out of there before anyone else showed up. I stumbled to my feet, my legs shaking, and started making my way towards the exit. But just as I reached the stairwell, I heard voices. It sounded like more of Sophia's goons. I panicked, ducking into a supply closet and hiding behind some shelves, praying they wouldn't find me. I could hear them shouting, searching the area. "Fan out! Find him! The boss wants him alive!" Alive? What did that mean? Were they going to take me to Vincent, the Mafia boss? The thought sent a chill down my spine. After what felt like an eternity, the voices and footsteps faded. Cautiously, I peeked out of the closet, making sure the coast was clear. I had to get out of this hospital, get as far away as possible. But where could I go? Sophia and her boss Vincent were clearly very dangerous people, and now they were after me. I made my way down the stairs and out the emergency exit, trying to stay in the shadows. As I hurried through the dark parking lot, I heard the wail of sirens in the distance. The police were on their way. I needed to move fast. Jumping into my car, I peeled out of the lot and sped away, my heart racing. I had no idea where I was going. I just knew I had to put as much distance between myself and that hospital as possible. After driving for what seemed like hours, I finally pulled over at a secluded rest stop, my adrenaline starting to wear off. What the hell was I going to do? I was in way over my head. These were dangerous criminals I was dealing with, and I had no idea how to protect myself. As I sat there, trying to catch my breath, my mind kept going back to Sophia. She had seemed so innocent, so helpless when I found her. But then the truth came out. She was some kind of mafia enforcer, a cold-blooded killer. The thought made me sick to my stomach. And what about that explosion? Had she rigged the hospital with explosives just in case things went south? The whole thing just didn't make sense. Why would she do that? Unless... Suddenly, it hit me. What if Sophia wasn't really dead? What if she had somehow survived the blast and was still out there, hunting me down? The realization sent a chill through me. I needed to find somewhere safe, somewhere I could hide and figure out my next move. But where? I couldn't go to the police, not after what I'd witnessed. They'd probably just think I was involved in the whole thing. No, I was on my own. Gripping the steering wheel, I racked my brain, trying to think of anyone who might be able to help me. And then it hit me, my old friend, Sarah. We hadn't talked in years, but she was always the resourceful one, the one who could get things done. Maybe she could help me figure this out. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. It rang a few times, and I was starting to lose hope when finally her familiar voice answered. "Hello, Sarah, it's Thomas. I need your help." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Thomas? What's going on?" I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "I'm in trouble, Sarah. Really big trouble. I need a place to hide, and I don't know who else to turn to." Another pause, then a concerned sigh. "Okay, where are you? I'll come get you." I gave her the location of the rest stop, and within an hour, I saw her car pulling up. I practically ran to the passenger side, jumping in and slamming the door behind me. "Thomas, what the hell is going on?" Sarah asked, her eyes wide with worry. I quickly explained the entire situation, from finding Sophia in the alley to the explosive showdown at the hospital. Sarah's expression shifted from concern to disbelief as I recounted the events. "You're telling me this Sophia woman is some kind of mafia enforcer, and now she and her boss are after you?" She shook her head in amazement. "I can't believe this. What did you get yourself into?" "I don't know, Sarah," I cried, running my hands through my hair in frustration. "I was just trying to help her, and now I'm in the middle." I need your help. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Thomas? What's going on? I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. I'm in trouble, Sarah. Really big trouble. I need a place to hide, and I don't know who else to turn to. Another pause, then a concerned sigh. Okay, where are you? I'll come get you. I gave her the location of the rest stop, and within an hour, I saw her car pulling up. I practically ran to the passenger side, jumping in and slamming the door behind me. Thomas, what the hell is going on? Sarah asked, her eyes wide with worry. I quickly explained the entire situation, from finding Sophia in the alley to the explosive showdown at the hospital. Sarah's expression shifted from concern to disbelief as I recounted the events. You're telling me this Sophia woman is some kind of mafia enforcer, and now she and her boss are after you? She shook her head in amazement. I can't believe this. What did you get yourself into? I don't know, Sarah, I cried, running my hands through my hair in frustration. I was just trying to help her, and now I'm in the middle of this crazy mafia mess. I don't know what to do. Sarah was silent for a moment, her brow furrowed in thought. Okay, well, the first thing we need to do is get you somewhere safe. You can't stay here. They'll be looking for you. I nodded, already feeling slightly more relieved with Sarah by my side. Do you have any ideas? Maybe. She chewed on her lip. Her eyes darted around as if she was formulating a plan. I've got a cabin up in the mountains, way off the grid. It's where I go to get away from everything. It might be the perfect place to hide you for a while. I felt a surge of hope. Really? You'd do that for me? Sarah reached over and gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. Of course, you're my friend, Thomas. I'm not going to just leave you to the wolves. I let out a shaky breath, the tension in my shoulders finally starting to ease. Thank you, Sarah. I don't know what I'd do without you. Hey, don't worry about it, she said with a small smile. That's what friends are for, right? Now, let's get you to that cabin and figure out our next move. As Sarah merged back onto the highway, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, but also a lingering unease. What if Sophia and her boss were already on their way, ready to hunt me down? Would the cabin really be safe enough? I tried to push those thoughts aside and focus on the present. Sarah was here, and she was going to help me. For now, that was all that mattered. The drive to the cabin was long and winding, but the further we got from the city, the more my nerves started to settle. When we finally pulled up to the secluded, rustic-looking building, I felt like I could finally take a deep breath. Welcome to my little hideaway, Sarah said with a smile, turning off the engine. I stepped out of the car, taking in my surroundings. The cabin was nestled in a dense forest, with no other signs of civilization for miles. It was the perfect place to disappear. Come on, let's get you inside, Sarah said, ushering me towards the front door. Once inside, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The cabin was cozy and well-stocked, with a fireplace and comfortable furniture. It was like a safe haven, far removed from the chaos I'd just escaped. Make yourself at home, Sarah said, gesturing around the room. I'll go grab us some snacks and we can figure out our next move. As she disappeared into the kitchen, I sank down onto the plush couch, finally allowing myself to relax. But just as I was starting to unwind, a sudden thought hit me, sending a jolt of panic through my chest. What if Sophia had followed us? What if she was out there right now, waiting to strike? I sprang up from the couch, my eyes darting around the room, searching for any signs of danger. Sarah must have heard the commotion because she came rushing back in, a look of concern on her face. Thomas, what's wrong? She asked, her voice laced with worry. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my nerves. Sarah, I think we might be in trouble. She furrowed her brow, taking a step closer. What do you mean? What's going on? I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. I think Sophia might have followed us. Sarah's eyes widened, and for a moment she was speechless. Then, in a hushed tone, she said, You mean she's here? In the cabin? I shook my head, my mind racing. I don't know, but I can't shake the feeling that she's out there, waiting for us. We both fell silent, the weight of the situation sinking in.
The cabin, which had felt like a safe haven just moments ago, now seemed to be shrouded in a sense of impending danger. As the seconds ticked by, the tension in the room grew palpable. Neither of us dared to move, our senses on high alert, waiting for any sign that Sophia had somehow tracked us down. The only sound was the crackling of the fire and the faint ticking of the old clock on the mantel. And in that silence, I couldn't help but wonder. Was Sophia out there, lurking in the shadows, ready to strike? Here is a 1,600-word continuation of the story with a shocking plot twist. The silence in the cabin was deafening. Sarah and I stood frozen, our eyes scanning the room for any sign of movement. The crackling of the fire was the only sound that broke the eerie stillness. My heart was pounding in my chest, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. What if Sophia was out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike? The thought sent a chill down my spine. Suddenly, a loud creak came from the direction of the kitchen. Sarah and I both whirled around, our bodies tensing up. Slowly, cautiously, we made our way towards the sound, our footsteps creaking on the old wooden floor.
As we reached the doorway, I peeked around the corner, bracing myself for the worst. But what I saw made my blood run cold. It wasn't Sophia. It was a figure I recognized all too well. Vincent, the Mafia boss. He was standing in the middle of the kitchen, a twisted grin on his face. "Well, well, well," he drawled, his voice dripping with menace. "Look what we have here." Sarah and I froze, our eyes wide with terror. How did he find us? And where was Sophia? "You know, Thomas," Vincent continued, his gaze fixing on me, "I must admit, I'm impressed. I didn't think you'd make it this far." He let out a low chuckle. "But then again, you always were the resilient type." I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. "How did you find us?" I managed to stammer. Vincent's smile widened, and he took a step towards us. "Oh, that was easy. You see, I've had my eye on you ever since you stumbled into my little business." My heart sank. You were watching me?" "Of course," Vincent replied, his tone casual, as if he were discussing the weather. "I couldn't very well let you interfere with my operations now, could I?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling. "What do you want from us?" Vincent's eyes narrowed, and a sinister glint flashed in his gaze. "What do I want?" He paused, letting the question hang in the air. "Well, my dear, what I want is simple. I want you both to disappear." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Disappear? As in, kill us? My mind raced, desperately searching for a way out of this nightmare. But Vincent seemed to sense my fear, and he let out a low and menacing chuckle. "Don't worry, Thomas," he said, his voice dripping with false reassurance. "It'll be quick. You won't even feel a thing." I felt Sarah's hand grip my arm, and I could sense her terror. We were trapped, with no way to escape. Just then, a thought occurred to me. "Wait," I blurted out, my voice surprisingly steady. "Where's Sophia?" Vincent's expression darkened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something. Anger? Grief? Flash across his face. "Sophia," he spat, his voice laced with venom. "That treacherous bitch, she betrayed me." Sarah and I exchanged a confused glance. Betrayed him? What did that mean? "You see," Vincent continued, his gaze burning into me, "Sophia was never loyal to me. She was playing her own game, using me and my organization for her own ends." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What are you saying?" Vincent's lips curled into a cruel smile. "I'm saying that Sophia was never the helpless victim you thought she was. She was the one pulling the strings all along." The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. "You mean you set me up?" I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "Exactly," Vincent hissed. "She used you, Thomas, to get to me, and now she's gone, taking everything I worked for with her." Sarah's grip on my arm tightened, and I could feel her trembling. "But Sophia betrayed you. Why are you coming after us?" Vincent's expression darkened, and for a moment I saw the true depths of his rage. "Because you two are the only loose ends left, and I can't have any witnesses." I felt my heart drop. This was it. We were going to die at the hands of this ruthless mafia boss. all because of Sophia's twisted scheme. Just as Vincent raised his gun, a sudden movement from the corner of my eye caught my attention. I glanced over, and my breath caught in my throat. It was Sophia. She was standing there, her clothes disheveled and her face streaked with dirt, but her eyes were alive with a wild, dangerous intensity. "Vincent!" she growled, her voice low and menacing. "You son of a bitch!" Vincent whirled around, his gun pointed directly at Sophia. "You!" he snarled. "I should have known you'd show your face again." Sophia took a step forward, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not going to let you hurt them, Vincent. This ends now." The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with the promise of violence. Sarah and I stood there, frozen, unsure of what to do. Suddenly, Sophia lunged forward, and the sound of gunfire erupted, deafening in the small kitchen. Sarah and I ducked for cover, our hearts racing. The battle between Sophia and Vincent raged on, the two of them trading blows and exchanging shots. It was a savage, brutal fight, and I could see the hatred and desperation in their eyes. Just when it seemed like Sophia had the upper hand, Vincent landed a devastating blow, sending her crashing to the floor. I watched in horror as he raised his gun, his finger tightening on the trigger. But before he could fire, a movement in the shadows caught his attention. He whirled around, his gun trained on the darkness. "Who's there?" he growled, his voice laced with suspicion. Silence. And then a chilling, familiar voice cut through the air. "Hello, Vincent." It was Sophia's voice, but it sounded different, colder, more sinister. Vincent's eyes widened, and for the first time I saw a flicker of fear in his expression. No, it can't be. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, and I felt my heart skip a beat. It was Sophia, but not the Sophia I had seen before. This Sophia was different. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful, and her eyes held a cold, calculating intensity. "It's good to see you again, Vincent," she said, her voice dripping with malice. Vincent took a step back, his gun trembling in his hand. "Impossible. You're supposed to be dead." Sophia let out a chilling laugh. "Oh, Vincent, you should know better than to underestimate me." With a blur of motion, she lunged forward, her fist connecting with Vincent's jaw with a sickening crack. He crumbled to the floor, his gun clattering to the ground. Sophia stood over him, her expression cold and merciless. "You always were a fool, Vincent."
"Did you really think you could get rid of me that easily?" Vincent coughed, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "How?" he rasped. Sophia's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Let's just say I had a few tricks up my sleeve, and now it's time to settle the score." She raised her gun, her finger tightening on the trigger. But before she could fire, Vincent let out a strangled cry. "Wait," he gasped. "What about them?" He gestured toward Sarah and me, his eyes wild with desperation. Sophia paused, her gaze flickering over to where we were huddled. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the same cold, calculating expression. "They're not part of this," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "They can go." I felt Sarah's grip on my arm tighten, and I could hear the fear in her voice. "Sophia, please, don't do this." Sophia's eyes narrowed, and she raised her gun again. "I'm done talking." The gunshot echoed through the kitchen, deafening in the sudden silence. Vincent's body went limp, and Sophia stood there, her expression still and unreadable. Sarah and I stared at her, our minds reeling. What the hell just happened? And what was Sophia's endgame? As Sophia turned to face us, I felt a chill run down my spine. Her eyes were cold, her expression unreadable. "You two should leave," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Before I change my mind." We didn't need to be told twice. Sarah and I scrambled to our feet, our legs shaking, and made a beeline for the front door. As we burst out into the night, I couldn't help but glance back, my heart pounding in my chest.
Sophia was still standing there, her gun in hand, her gaze fixed on the body of the fallen Mafia boss. And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. This was far from over. Here is a 1,600-word continuation of the story with a shocking plot twist. I can't stop thinking about what happened back at that cabin. It's been a few days, but the whole thing still feels like a bad dream. I can't believe Sophia, or whoever the hell she really is, just executed Vincent like that right in front of us. The way she did it, so cold and calculated, it sends a shiver down my spine just remembering it. Sarah and I got out of there as fast as we could, not even stopping to look back. We just drove and drove, not knowing where we were going or what we were going to do. All I knew was that we had to put as much distance between us and that place as possible. Eventually, we ended up crashing at a cheap motel, both of us too shaken to even think about sleep. I couldn't stop replaying the events in my head, the gunshots, the look in Sophia's eyes, the way Vincent's body just crumbled to the floor. It was all just too much. "What are we going to do, Thomas?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "That woman is dangerous. We need to go to the police or something." I shook my head, my mind racing.
No way. You saw what she did to Vincent. Who knows what she'd do to us if we try to turn her in? Sarah's eyes widened, and I could see the fear in her expression. You really think she'd come after us? I don't know, I admitted, running my hands through my hair in frustration. But I'm not willing to take that risk. We need to figure out another way to get out of this mess. We sat in silence for a long time, both of us trying to come up with a plan, but the truth was, I had no idea what to do. I was in way over my head, and the only person who seemed to have any kind of control over the situation was Sophia. Just as I was about to suggest we just pack up and keep driving, my phone started ringing. I nearly jumped out of my skin, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah and I exchanged a terrified look, both of us wondering if it could be Sophia on the other end. Slowly, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, my hands shaking. The caller ID was unfamiliar, but I decided to take the risk and answer it. "Hello?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Thomas, is that you?" A familiar voice replied. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "Sophia, how did you get this number?" There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. "I've been keeping an eye on you," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. I swallowed hard, suddenly feeling uneasy again. "What do you want?" "I need your help," she said, her voice low and urgent. I blinked in surprise. "My help? After what you did back there?" "Thomas, please," she said, a hint of desperation in her voice. "I know I have a lot of explaining to do, but this is important. I need you to meet me." I glanced over at Sarah, who was watching me with a mix of fear and curiosity. I mouthed the word Sophia, and her eyes widened. "I don't know, Sophia," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Why should I trust you?" "Because if you don't, a lot of innocent people are going to get hurt," she replied, her tone grave. "Please, Thomas, I need your help." I felt my heart sink. Innocent people? What the hell was going on? "Okay," I said, finally. "Where do you want to meet?" After Sophia gave me the location, I hung up the phone, my mind racing. "What did she say?" Sarah asked, her eyes searching mine. "She wants me to meet her," I replied, still trying to process what was happening. "What? Are you crazy?" Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising in panic. "You can't just go meet her after what she did." I raised my hand, trying to calm her down. I know, but she said she needs my help and that innocent people are in danger." Sarah shook her head, her expression one of disbelief. "You can't seriously be considering this, Thomas. She's a murderer." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I know, Sarah, but what if she's telling the truth? What if there's more going on here than we know?" Sarah opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. "Look, I'm not saying I trust her. But I have to at least hear her out. Who knows? Maybe we can find a way to get out of this mess." Sarah stared at me for a long moment, her brow furrowed in concern. Finally, she let out a resigned sigh. "Okay, fine, but I'm coming with you." I shook my head. "No, Sarah, this is too dangerous. I can't risk you getting caught up in all of this." "That's not up for discussion, Thomas," she said, her tone firm. "I'm not letting you go alone." I wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes told me it was a losing battle. I nodded, conceding defeat. "All right, fine,
But you have to promise me you'll stay out of sight, okay? Sarah gave me a small, grateful smile. I promise. With that, we made our way to the address Sophia had given me, my heart pounding the entire time. I had no idea what we were walking into, but I knew I had to at least try to get to the bottom of this. Too many people had already gotten hurt, and I couldn't stand by and do nothing. When we arrived at the location, it was an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The place looked like it hadn't been used in years, and the sense of foreboding only grew stronger as we approached. "You sure about this, Thomas?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "No, but I have to try." We made our way inside, the dusty air thick with the smell of decay. As we navigated the dimly lit corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the cavernous space. "You came." We both whirled around to see Sophia emerge from the shadows, her expression unreadable. "Where is it, Sophia?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Where's what?" "The thing you need my help with," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Sophia's lips quirked into a small, almost amused smile. "Oh, that. It's not here, Thomas." I felt my heart sink. "What do you mean, it's not here?" Before Sophia could respond, a loud crash came from behind us, and we both jumped in surprise. Instinctively, I pushed Sarah behind me, trying to shield her from whatever was coming. As the dust settled, a figure emerged from the darkness, and my blood ran cold. It was Vincent, the Mafia boss we had seen Sophia execute just days earlier. But he was very much alive, his eyes wild and his expression twisted with rage. "You!" he roared, his gaze fixed on Sophia. Sophia's expression hardened, and she took a step forward, her hand reaching for her gun. "This ends now, Vincent." But before she could draw her weapon, Vincent lunged forward, his massive hands closing around her throat. Sophia let out a choked gasp, her eyes wide with panic. Sarah grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Thomas, we have to get out of here." But I was frozen, my eyes glued to the brutal scene unfolding before me.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Vincent, whom I had watched Sophia execute, was very much alive, and now strangling her. As Sophia's struggles grew weaker, Vincent's grip only tightened. "You thought you could outsmart me, you bitch," he snarled, his voice dripping with malice. Suddenly, Sophia's hand shot out, and I saw the glint of a knife in her grasp. With a desperate final burst of strength, she plunged the blade into Vincent's side. The Mafia boss let out a guttural scream, his grip on Sophia's throat loosening. She gasped for air, her eyes wild and frantic. Without hesitation, she shoved Vincent away, sending him stumbling backwards. He crashed to the ground, the knife still protruding from his side, blood pooling around him. Sophia stood there, her chest heaving, her eyes fixed on the fallen man. For a moment, there was a strange, almost triumphant expression on her face. But then, her gaze shifted to Sarah and me, and the triumph was quickly replaced by something else, something that sent a chill down my spine. "You two," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "You've seen too much." I felt my heart skip a beat, and I instinctively pushed Sarah behind me, shielding her with my body. "Sophia, please," I pleaded, my voice trembling. "We won't say anything, I swear." Sophia's lips curled into a twisted smile. "Oh, Thomas, I'm afraid it's too late for that." She raised her gun, and in that moment, I knew we were doomed. Sarah and I were going to die, right here in this abandoned warehouse, at the hands of the very woman I had tried to help. As Sophia's finger tightened on the trigger, I closed my eyes, bracing myself for the end. But the gunshot never came. Instead, a strangled gurgle escaped Sophia's lips, and I opened my eyes to see her staring down in shock at the knife protruding from her abdomen. She turned, her gaze locking on the battered, bloodied form of Vincent, who was glaring at her with unbridled hatred. "You?" Sophia rasped, her voice barely above a whisper. Vincent let out a dark chuckle. "Didn't think I had it in me, did you?"
Sophia's knees buckled, and she crumpled to the ground, the gun clattering from her grasp. Sarah and I stood there, frozen in shock, as the two adversaries lay sprawled before us, their blood mingling on the dusty floor. I couldn't believe what had just happened. 1 minute, Sophia had the upper hand, and the next, the tables had turned in the most unexpected way. As I looked down at the two wounded figures, I realized that the truth was still hidden, buried beneath layers of deception and violence. And in that moment, I knew that the only way to unravel this twisted web would be to delve deeper into the darkness, no matter the cost. This was far from over. Here's the final 1,600-word chapter to wrap up the story. I still can't believe everything that's happened. It's like something out of a movie. The violence, the betrayals, the shocking twists and turns.
But this was all too real, and Sarah and I were right in the middle of it. After watching Sophia and Vincent stab each other in that abandoned warehouse, we were completely shaken. I thought for sure they were both going to die right in front of us. But somehow, against all odds, they were both still alive, albeit badly wounded. Sarah and I just stood there, frozen, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to run, to get as far away from this nightmare as possible. But another part of me, the part that had gotten me into this mess in the first place, knew that I couldn't just leave. I had to find out the truth, no matter how dark and twisted it might be. So, with a deep breath, I stepped forward, approaching the two wounded figures on the floor. Sophia's eyes were barely open, but she seemed to register my presence. Vincent, on the other hand, glared at me with a mix of anger and, was that fear? "Thomas," Sophia rasped, her voice barely above a whisper, "you need to get out of here." I shook my head, crouching down next to her. "No, Sophia, I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's really going on." She let out a weak chuckle, wincing in pain. "You always were too curious for your own good." I glanced over at Vincent, who was watching us with narrowed eyes. "And what about you? What's your story?" The Mafia boss let out a dry, humorless laugh. "My story? It's simple, really. I was a fool who got played by the one person I thought I could trust." Sophia's lips curled into a faint, almost triumphant smile. "Guess you weren't as smart as you thought, Vincent." Vincent's expression darkened, and he let out a hiss of pain as he tried to shift his position. "Laugh it up, you bitch. You may have won this round, but I'll be damned if I let you get away with it." I looked back and forth between the two of them, my head spinning. Okay, can someone please just tell me what the hell is going on here? What is all of this about? Sophia sighed, her eyes drifting closed for a moment. "It's a long story, Thomas, one that goes back a long time." "Well, we've got time," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Start talking." Sophia opened her eyes and fixed me with a weary but resolute gaze. "Fine, but you have to promise that when this is all over, you and your friend will disappear. I can't have any more loose ends." I glanced over at Sarah, who was hovering nearby, her expression a mix of fear and determination. She gave me a small nod, and I turned back to Sophia. "All right, I promise." Sophia took a deep breath and began her tale. "It all started years ago, when I was just a kid growing up on the streets. I had to do whatever it took to survive, and that's how I got mixed up with Vincent and his operation." She paused, wincing in pain. "At first, I was just a low-level enforcer, doing the dirty work for him. But I was smart, and I was always observing, always looking for an opportunity." Vincent let out a derisive snort.
"That's putting it mildly. You were a snake, Sophia, biding your time and waiting to strike." Sophia shot him a withering glare. "Shut up and let me finish." She turned back to me, her expression hardening. "Anyway, over the years I started climbing the ranks, working my way into Vincent's inner circle. I became his most trusted lieutenant, the one he confided in the most." She let out a dark chuckle. "And all the while I was playing him, feeding him misinformation, siphoning off funds, setting the stage for my eventual takeover." I felt a chill run down my spine. "So you were planning to betray him all along?" Sophia nodded, a satisfied glint in her eyes. "That's right. I was going to take everything he built and make it my own. I was so close, too, but then you had to go and get involved." I swallowed hard, suddenly feeling a wave of guilt. "I'm sorry, Sophia. I didn't mean to." She held up a hand, silencing me. "Save it, Thomas. What's done is done.
The important thing is, I was this close to pulling it off. And then Vincent figured it out. Vincent let out a low, menacing growl. "You're damn right I did. I may not be as smart as you, Sophia, but I'm not an idiot. I started noticing things, little discrepancies and inconsistencies, and then it all clicked into place." He fixed me with a cold, calculating stare. "That's where you come in, Thomas. Sophia used you as part of her plan. She knew I'd come after you, and she was counting on me to do her dirty work for her." I felt a sense of dread wash over me. "So you're saying Sophia wanted me to, what, get killed?" Sophia shook her head, wincing in pain. "No, not exactly. I just needed you to be a distraction, to draw Vincent's attention away from my other operations. I never intended for you to get hurt." I let out a humorless laugh. "Well, you did a hell of a job with that." Sophia's lips quirked into a small, wry smile. "Yeah, well, things didn't exactly go as planned." Vincent let out a bark of laughter. "That's the understatement of the century. Your little scheme blew up in your face, Sophia, and now here we are." I looked back and forth between the two of them, my mind reeling. "Okay, so what happens now? Are you two just going to kill each other?" Sophia's expression darkened. "That's the plan, but I'm not going down without a fight." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "Same here, you backstabbing bitch. This ends today." I held up my hands, panic rising in my chest. Whoa, hold on a second. You can't just..." But before I could finish, Sophia and Vincent both lunged at each other, their movements fueled by pure rage and desperation. They grappled and traded blows, their wounds leaking blood onto the dusty floor. Sarah grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with terror. "Thomas, we have to get out of here. They're going to kill each other." I hesitated, torn between the desire to flee and the need to understand what was really going on. But as I watched the brutal fight unfold, I knew that Sarah was right. We couldn't stay here any longer. With a heavy heart, I turned to her and said, "Okay, let's go. We've seen enough." We hurried out of the warehouse, the sounds of the struggle echoing behind us. As we made our way to the car, I couldn't help but glance back, wondering if Sophia or Vincent would emerge victorious. In the end, I guess it doesn't really matter. The truth is, they were both twisted, manipulative individuals who had been playing a dangerous game for far too long. And in the end, they got exactly what they deserved. As for Sarah and me, we kept our promise and disappeared. We drove for hours, putting as much distance between ourselves and that nightmare as possible. And eventually, we found a safe haven, a place where we could start over and try to move on with our lives. But the memory of that twisted tale, with its betrayals, violence, and shocking revelations, will never truly leave us. It's a reminder that sometimes the truth is far more terrifying than any fiction. And who knows, maybe somewhere out there, Sophia and Vincent are still fighting, still clawing at each other's throats, trapped in an endless cycle of hatred and revenge. A fitting end for two people who were consumed by their own ambition and greed. As for us, we're just grateful to be alive and to have each other. We've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from the darkness, even if it means leaving the truth behind. Because in the end, some mysteries are better left unsolved. So, that's the story, my friend. A wild, twisted tale of betrayal, violence, and the lengths people will go to in order to achieve their own twisted goals. It's not a pretty story, but it's one that will stay with me forever. And who knows, maybe one day I'll see a news report about the bodies of two notorious criminals being found in an abandoned warehouse, and I'll just smile and shake my head, because I'll know the truth, even if the rest of the world never does.